I had a feeling that I was going to like CHUCHU, but man, I love CHUCHU. CHUCHU's so great. She really reminds me of Becca from Edge Runners, just really just a spitfire, short, unique hairstyle. It's got everything going that Becca had. So yeah, absolutely love CHUCHU's introduction. Obviously, early segments, you get that little spitefulness of her, that little meanness that she has. Obviously, seeing how she's persecuted by the Spatians, doesn't have a good outlook. I do like that look towards the later part of this episode. Kind of comes to realization for her, not just by what Miorin says to her and the idea that, you know, you're acting just like the Spatians. If you're being so mean to Suetta, who's opening her arms to you, you're being just like the Spatians to the Earthians. But additionally, obviously, kind of connecting the two of them both realizing that somebody's behind them, that's supporting them, that they have this dream they're trying to fulfill for the people that they left behind. Obviously, it seems like CHUCHU has some sort of connection to the factory workers on Earth. Additionally, you know, Suetta has her connections to Mercury and wanting to build that up. So they're really super cute. And at the same time, absolutely loved her beating the crap out of those two girls. It's kind of one of those things where you have the conniving characters off the side and they get their dues. But no, episode 4 of Gundam was absolutely fantastic. Yes, mainly because of CHUCHU, but also kind of give us a full glimpse of that Spatian and Earthian issue that's happening there. And yes, once again, pushing heavily on the idea that Suetta being the one that's going to kind of bridge the two together. Yes, technically having a lot of help from Nika. Nika, I think... I'm going to say this now. I might as well get this out of the way before I forget. I don't see Nika living through this entire series. I don't know why. Nika just feels like the pure-hearted one that's in the middle, that is trying to bridge everybody together. The one that's like super pure. Yes, Suetta's super pure, but she's a main character. But Nika, I believe, is going to be the one that dies at some point. Like, she is going to be that character. I was going to mention, I was going to say similar to a certain character of another show, but then that would kind of spoil that show. But I just feel like Nika's going to be the martyr. Like, I feel like Nika at this point is going to be the one that dies at some point to show both sides how terrible this whole situation is about the Spatians versus Earthians. But it was cool that at some point they actually had one of the members of Nika's group kind of point out the idea of, why are you talking to us? You know that we're Earthians, which obviously Suetta doesn't understand because Suetta's from this Mercury out in the sticks. But additionally, they're kind of pointing it out as it's not just the literal sense of Earthians. When they say you Earthians, it's not mean that they're born from Earth. It's just going to be some sort of connection or probably a mindset in that regard. It could be that they're from a company that was originally from Earth. It could be the idea that they are descendants of people that were born on Earth, or just the mindset itself. Like you approve of Earth versus Spatians. You got to be on one side or the other. It's kind of like the political sphere in the real world. You got to be on one side or the other. You can't be in the middle, even though Suetta, obviously, and Nika and several others are trying to be that middle. But yeah, opening up this episode, I'm getting way ahead of myself. Opening up this episode, we have obviously Guru. Seems like he kind of pulls back on what he says. Like, he wants to marry Suetta, but at the same time he's like, wait, that's not what I meant. And then she goes running away saying, no way. But then they kind of clarify in the class, yes, we had a classroom scene. Apparently they're going to an academy. We actually had a classroom scene. But no, they cut to the classroom scene where, you know, Miorin shows Suetta, you know, you have this outfit that you're supposed to wear because you are the current handler. But additionally, you are my bridegroom. You gotta live up to that status that you now are. But yes, Ghoul comes in, fulfills his apology, but at the same time, I don't know, I really don't know at this point, clarifying with Suetta that he's not in love with her. So it seems like he has some sort of other reason why he wants to marry with Suetta. Does he believe that's a way for him to regain his status? Because obviously right now, with this episode, we're clearly pointing out that Guel is losing his status. He's losing his status as the ace pilot of his company that his father runs, but additionally, his father's already seeing there's some after effects of this, that they're pulling funding from his company because his son has screwed up so much. He's lost twice in a duel and to boot to a country bumpkin, a child. So yeah, it's not looking good for Guel, but at the same time, like I said in the last episode impressions, I really do like this because I really do feel like Guel's going to be that character that sees like the substantial change in his life. And I think he's going to turn out to be a really fantastic character in the end. But yes, this is where we cut to the exam, which again, another class, another school-related thing we're actually going to do with this academy. But this exam where they have to go through this field and everything, which Suetta immediately fails. They said, no, you don't have anybody backing you up. You need to hire people. You need to have people behind you. You can't just walk out there. At the same time, CHUCHU is losing her exam because somebody sabotaged her screen so she couldn't see anything. But yeah, Sueta's going around. She's trying to find somebody that'll be a part of her support team. And we're really getting a sense over this period of time that Sueta feels very isolated. And it comes to a head at the very end. I like how this entire episode is showing Sueta's insecurities. Even though she does have people around her that could support her or want to support her but can't, she feels isolated. She's already come here alone. She feels alone. And so when she needs actual help, nobody's really coming to her aid. She's trying to reach out to people. She's really trying to get out there. But yes, Nika is not able to because she's currently trying to help CHUCHU with her exam. She gets a brief moment where she can work with this Earthian house that CHUCHU's a part of, but CHUCHU comes in and basically chases her out. And that eventually leads to Ellen coming to Sueta. Like, he always seems to appear whenever she's at her worst. Like, he just kind of comes out from the shadows like, Sueta, you're upset. What's going on? It's like this creepy dude just comes out from the bushes. Sueta, I hear you're crying. But no, Ellen offers to bring her into his house, which Miorin, again, also kind of comes out of nowhere, just out of the bushes. No, wait, you're not allowed to help her. You're one of the 3 branches that's trying to get to me. So obviously, no, Sueta, you can't take any help from this failure. It was a fake prince, which I'm curious what that'll come into later on. But I did like that Sueta, like, stood up. Like, she's not the one. I think it's like the second time she's ever really stood up against somebody. First was whenever they were making fun of Guil, and now whenever Miorin is making fun of Ellen. If there's somebody that's saying something that she believes is false, she's still willing to kind of speak out, even though she's very hesitant of it. No, Ellen's a good person. He offered to bring me to his house. That's not fair to say that kind of stuff about him. This is great because Miorin offers, obviously, I'll help you out. Oh, well, we need 2 people. No, I'll handle both positions. But I thought you were studying this. No, I know enough that I can handle it. And she brings her back to this place that she has, which is like a whole classroom that she gets to take over for all of her gardening. And it was great because Sueta's like, well, can you help me out with this too? And she puts out this like small exam that they had at some point. And it's like this, I actually went through and read it. It's like some very basic questions, but I feel bad for Sueta because it's like these questions that seem like very basic questions, and she's technically answering them truthfully, but it's not the answers they want, obviously. So when they were talking about why they do build things the certain way they do, and it's like she put in there for factory safety, and it's like incorrect. It was really funny reading all those. It's also interesting to note that the entire room that Miorin's in, that she's been staying in, is like covered in trash. So Miorin is not much of a housewife, I guess we'll just put it that way. But no, this leads into some overworld building where we do see that there's a lot of riots in the streets on Earth. A lot of Earthians are very upset that their taxes and their labor and everything is being taken advantage by the Spatians. Everything they build and everything in their factory is going to the Spatians, and they're not seeing enough coming back for it. Kind of going back to that first episode where they did kind of lay out the political sphere right now and what each side kind of wants right now. Spatians were mostly kind of focused on defense and stuff like that, whereas the Earthians were more focused on work and labor and pay and all this kind of stuff. They're kind of being left behind by the Spatians, which is, again, kind of typical to a lot of the Gundam series and the overworld kind of idea of the universe, is that idea of people leaving for space and leaving people behind, but still using them. And this is where we get that connection to CHUCHU, as it seems like CHUCHU at some point is talking to some, what look like factory workers. She's obviously concerned about what's going on. They're like, don't worry about it. Just focus on what you're doing. But again, really hitting heavy on that idea of her dealing with Spatians and beating them up and stuff like that, and them kind of supporting her for standing up for the Earthians. It did a really good job of not really getting into super depth with CHUCHU, but you still get a sense of what's driving her. That she is a little bit upset about what's going on in the world itself, and it's directly affecting her and the people that are supporting her. They also kind of point out the idea that the media is kind of in the pockets of the Spatians, so a lot of the media coverage of these riots and stuff is really kind of slanted more towards the Earthians being wrong. At the same time that we're getting this perspective, we also see Sueta's perspective, what she dreams for, which I think is the first time we really got a clear sense on that. I know that there's a novel out there, a short novel, that gives a little perspective of Sueta's life at Mercury. But this is where she's really playing out saying, look, I'm really trying to build a school in Mercury. That's what I want to do eventually. And I'm hoping that that will bring people to Mercury because there's not many people there. So she thinks that if she builds a school or something at Mercury, it'll kind of bring kids and families over to Mercury. And it seems like the people that are, at the head of Mercury seem like they're kind of okay with that and they really like their ideas. So that's something that she's really kind of shooting for, which for some reason really upsets Miorin, which I'll be curious to see how this kind of unfolds because Miorin, she seems kind of insulted by this. Like, why don't you just live for yourself? Why are you living to help them? And so it's like, I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing it for myself. Like, this is something that I want to do, which Miorin says, oh, that's admirable, and just kind of walks away. It really just seemed like this idea of somebody working for somebody else upsets Miorin. Like, she believes in this idea of do whatever you want to do. Again, she's technically always lived under her father's shadow, so it makes sense. Maybe she sees that Sueta is working under somebody else's shadow, just like she's always had to live under her father's shadow. But again, I'll be curious to see how that kind of unfolds going forward. Which, yes, this all leads up to the big exam. The retaking of the exam, both CHUCHU and Sueta there, like I said, having this moment where CHUCHU comes in, is being mean to Sueta, and Bjorn pointing out the hypocrisy of that, like, you are being just like the Spatians that you hate so much. But like I said, I really like the scene, yes, mainly because of CHUCHU. But yeah, it's really kind of more Sueta getting frustrated. Like, she ends up getting sabotaged, of course. The test instructors are like, we're allowing it because you should have checked it beforehand. Apparently there's a spray that is perfectly designed to have a delay. Like, somebody created a spray that has a delay to cover a monitor. But yes, this messes her up. Miorin is having to kind of guide her through this whole thing, completely blind, which is not working out well. And eventually Sueta getting very frustrated. Like, I came here alone, I had nobody, I'm doomed to fail. She really is down herself. Like, she has no trust that she's going to be able to pull this off. And it's funny because it's not like Miorin like goes, well, pep talk. You really wanted to build that school, right? You should do this. It's for those people, right? No, Miorin's just like, you did this. Like, you came here. You wanted to help that school. Go back. Like, Miorin's just yelling at her to do it. And Sueta just kind of accepts it. It's not like, it's not like this big grand pep talk that Miorin gives that inspires Sueta. It's just literally Miorin just telling her, shut up and go back to the beginning. I like that it's not typical. But yes, technically through Sueta's cries, through her upset, and through CHUCHU hearing what Miorin says about her wanting to build this school, CHUCHU obviously realized at this point, Sueta's kind of like me. Like, we're both the same person. Yes, she's a Spatian, and I'm an Earthian, but we both have the same goal. We both have the same purpose, and we both outside of those usual kind of constraints and discrimination that everybody else is kind of wound up in. Again, going back to what Miorin told her, don't be like the Spatians and attack her. And so for this, she gets super upset, probably also because she's failed the test because of them as well, goes out to these two girls that are just laughing at the sideline that sabotage Sueta's mobile suit, and goes out there and just punch. That first punch was like, her face comes back and then forward, then she slumps over. I'm like, God, that looked kind of violent. Like, I'm not used to punches looking that way in animated format. So it was a mean punch. But yeah, that just breaks out to this fight. And then Miorin calls out to Sueta to go out there and help her, and Sueta gets punched, and then, yeah, CHUCHU finished off the other person. Which is cool because it kind of wraps things up with, yeah, CHUCHU accepting to allow Sueta into this Earthian house. I don't know if it's called Earthian House, which I think is kind of a little on the nose, but they said Earthian House, so I'm assuming the name of it is Earthian House. Which makes sense, though, because if, like, their whole layout of their house was, like, just like they had a farm with a bunch of goats and stuff in it, it felt very Earthian. It felt like they were, a lot of the theme around that building was around just it being from Earth. Probably a lot of the niceties and things they're comfortable with and they have experienced in the past, they're used to from Earth being brought into it. But yeah, it was great what she said when she punched that first girl. It was like, somebody not carrying other people's hopes and dreams, it's just cheap to interfere or something like that. It was really cool. Again, it was pretty much her saying, Sueta's just like me. She's carrying somebody else's hopes and dreams, and it's not right for you to interfere. She was speaking for herself, but also Sueta. But yeah, great episode. Absolutely loved it. Again, I'm absolutely in love with CHUCHU. I have so many characters. Like, I like Sueta, I like CHUCHU, I really like Nika. Again, I'm kind of hesitant on really liking Nika because for some reason I feel like she's gonna be the one that dies, the catalyst. She's gonna be the catalyst for something. I hope not. She's too pure. But that's usually what happens to pure characters. Anyways, my thoughts on episode 4 of Mobile Suit Gundam, The Witch from Mercury. I hope you guys enjoyed this video as always did. Make sure to hit that like button down below, comment, let me know what's thought of the episode. Subscribe to the channel if you've not already. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top lists. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, we have a Patreon link, a tips link, and a super thanks button down below. I greatly appreciate everybody that considers, and y'all take care.